Hello everyone. Today we're going to go over static classes, static variables, and static methods. So static classes break the object-oriented paradigm, meaning you no longer create your own little instance of a object, and that code is no longer contained in this little environment. Static means it's going to be, there's only one object, you could think of it, and it's used in all circumstances. So whenever I use a static class or static field or static method, I'm using the same one over and over again, meaning I don't make an object and I can't differentiate one usage of that static class versus another usage of it. It's always the same. So it breaks the object-oriented paradigm. So I have an example up right here where we're going to calculate the late fees of someone who's turning in a book. And this will be consistent regardless of how I use the utility class. This utility class will always spit out the same result. If I change this late fee rate, that will permanently change the late fee rate going forward for anytime this utility class is used again. So one important detail that comes about when you start creating static classes like this is the information related to it. You don't need to create an object like we would for a library book or a record. So here we have new, and then we call the constructor to create a record. Here we just, with the utility class, we just call the method right away. You don't need to create an object for it. And by consequence, we're not using a constructor, right? We just call this utility calculate late fee, and it'll work right as is. And so let's implement this really quick. So we're going to, well, let's take a quick look at what our method's going to do. Our method takes in the due date and the return date. So here's the return date right here. So we have a date times struct return date equals this right here. I'm just going to replace this variable here because we can just reuse return date for the utility function, our static function. So here we have, excuse me, utility dot late fee rate, and we need to give it not late fee rate, calculate late fee, and now it's looking for due date and return date. So due date comes from our record here, our checkout record. Due date and return date. And that should be everything we need to calculate the late fee. This is a really simple example, and static functions are pretty simple to understand. Just keep in mind that it breaks the object-oriented paradigm, and it's not something you typically want to do very often if you're trying to do object-oriented programming, which is the preferred way to do most of our programming. But sometimes there will be functions that you just want to have easily accessible throughout your entire program. And this could be an instance of it. This might not be the best example, but you get the gist. I don't need to create a utility object like we created a record or like we created this library book. I just immediately can call this utility object and this calculate late fee. And we could also change the late fee rate, but what that means is this late fee rate is true for every utility calculate late fee. It's always going to be the same. I'm not allowed to change that piece of information. But yeah, let's run the code and return a book and just see what follow our debugger here through the process. So this is an instance where return date is less than due date. That is because we have that 7-week period. So of course we have 0 late fee. And that's a very simple static function. We could mess with it a little bit and get us to return a result. All that, if I just played with the dates here a little bit, all you would see is it's just multiplying the number of days by 25 cents per day. That's all we're doing here. We're just creating a 25 cent per day fee for the user if they return a book late. And to do so, all we need to do is mess with some of the dates inside of the function, and you would get to see that the late fee would appear. But that's a quick rundown of a static function, and that's all we're going to cover for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.